Candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Abeg Vex Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to an episode that is much needed. I know I say that a lot, but this one is needed. Today, I have the pleasure of having Mr. Scott Stewart with me. Mr. Scott is the regional marketing director for assisted living facility, a memory care facility on the Oregon coast. Hi, Scott. How are you doing today?
Hey, I am doing well. So happy to be here with you. Thanks for having
I'm so happy you were able to come in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, Scott, tell us about a little bit of what you do, how long you've been doing it, and the importance of what we need to talk about today, which is the care for the elderly.
Right. I got my start in, we call it, the senior care or senior living space. I got my start about 13 years ago, maybe I guess almost 13 and a half years ago now, but it came from just a mutual love and a mutual trust with older adults. And I just always thought they were so fun. They were so enjoyable. And when the mortgage industry had its little crash in 08-09, my landing pad was in the senior care space. And so I started out as a marketer for an in-home care agency, and then moved to a slightly different in-home care agency. And then over the course of, the total of 13 and a half years, I've now been a marketing director for in-home care, for assisted living, and for memory care. Mm-hmm. And so when families find their loved one or even their spouse, grandparents, aunts and uncles, great-grandparents for that matter, right, when they find themselves that, having that loved one at home, that worked for a while, but it doesn't work anymore. The care exceeds what the family is able to do, or even exceeds maybe having a couple different people come into the home, in-home care. It just exceeds. And they're looking like, okay, this has now become like more than a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And so that's the space I've lived in, is really helping families, assisting them, walking through this process as their aging loved one. Sometimes that's the physical body, right, that breaks down and they have more challenges. And then sometimes it's the cognition piece, which, generally leads to some kind of memory care, Alzheimer's and dementia. Right. And I really enjoy, you could say love. I love helping those families walk through that process and come alongside and supporting them.
Beautiful. So let's delve into this conversation, right? In your experience, how prepared do you find families in dealing with, getting care for the aging loved one? Are they always super prepared, or on the other side of things? Because that's a conversation we're having. And yeah. I have my experience in this industry as well, the home care, memory care arena, and, all the things that I have seen and discovered. So in your experience, do you see that families are usually prepared to make the decisions and also to have the right documentation in place?
Yeah. The short answer is no, they are not prepared. I'm sorry, they're not. That's the short answer. Now let me explain a little bit. Let me put some context to that. Right. I think it's really easy sometimes for families to kind of have a mindset, if you will, that they say, well, yeah, one day dad's going to need that. Or, well, yeah, that's a few years away, mom. Maybe we can look at that with mom, in a few years, but not right now. And that's really, really easy to say. But the problem is nobody ever takes action after that. And the majority of the time, certainly not every single time, but the majority of the time, there's no action behind that. And so what happens is there's an event, right? There's an event. Mom falls. Dad has a stroke. Whatever that event is, and nobody's prepared for it. The kids haven't come together and say, okay, if this happens, what are we going to do? What's our next step? And so sadly, I think this is part of the industry that weighs on my heart, because these families have had years and years and years to plan. And now all of a sudden, when the event happens, it's crisis management, right? I use the analogy, the wheels have come off the wagon, and now the wagon's not going anywhere, or it's crashing down the hill. But everybody's trying to figure out, what do we do? And to get all of the kids, or even sometimes the grandkids, family members, on the same page in a crisis, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so we find ourselves, as families, making really tough decisions in emotionally heightened, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, so I do nothing, which is not the right answer either,
Or denial.
Oh, shoot, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, denial. Well, dad's in the nursing home. Dad's going to pop back out of it, right? Dad's only 79. He's going to pop back out of it. Really? I love the positive thinking. I'm that guy. But what if he doesn't? What is the plan? What are we going to do? So no, I wish more families planned, but they just simply don't.
So, what do you think? We've named a number of things that possibly could contribute to the fact of families not planning. What do you think? Now, let's talk about conflict, right? Conflict between family members and things of that nature. What have you seen has been one of the primary reasons why these conflicts do exist?
That's a very good question. We're diving into the heart of it, aren't we?
Yeah, at first.
So I think the conflict, or the different ideas that come from I'm gonna call them the adult kids. Okay, the adult kids that they're now in their late 50s, 60s, sometimes even 70s, right? The conflict comes that most of the time there seems to be one that just doesn't know what to do. And like you said, a little bit of denial, and they're like, they don't know what to do, but the option that their sibling has is not the right one. They don't know what to do, but no, putting dad in a home. Now, come on, there's got to be another option. Well, what is the other option? Let's talk about that. Let's have that dialogue. If you don't think, if dad has Alzheimer's and he can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago, and he's exit seeking, he's trying to leave the house, whether it's the middle of the day or the middle of the night, and one adult child says, no, I just don't think we're there yet. Okay, what is the answer? What? He's leaving in the middle of the night. Are you going to come over and stay awake all night to make sure he doesn't leave? I mean, okay, if put him in a home, then what are we going to do? I think there's a lack of communication. And I will admit, it's not the most fun thing, enjoyable thing to talk about. These are our parents. These are mom and dad.
Our first heroes.
Yes.
Our first heroes, because mom knows everything, dad knows everything, right?
Yes. And now the role is reversing, because dad can't make good decisions, healthy, safe decisions on his own anymore. And now someone has to step up and do that. Someone does. I see that a lot too, is the kids dad's been the patriarch, right? He has led the show. He's made the rules. He's what dad says goes. And they come from that generation. I think we all need to address that as well.
Right.
That what dad says goes. Well, now guess what? They're still keeping dad in that spot, that elevated spot, but dad doesn't have the cognition that he did. Dad doesn't have the ability to make decisions anymore. He's irrational. He's saying things that don't make sense.
Right.
And I think the kids need to understand If I could really maybe drill something into families, is to understand something, is there will come a time where the adult children are going to have to make tough decisions, and it won't feel good. It might even feel a little bit like you're overstepping your boundaries with your father. It might feel like you're demanding or commanding that your father or your mother do something
Right.
that maybe they don't want to do. And that doesn't feel good. And I acknowledge that 100%. But that's still for their safety, for their health, for them to remain on the earth and be in a safe place. That still doesn't mean it shouldn't be done.
Right. And people struggle with that. Parenting a parent is not easy. And the other aspect of things, I'm going to get very controversial here.
Yeah.
How much have you seen finances being a bone of contention, where that one child, that one grandchild just feels like this level of care which is required is too expensive? There's got to be other options that is not so expensive. Or that means we have to sell whatever property to cover this expense, as opposed to, passing it down or keeping it in the family. How much have you seen finances being a main decision maker in getting an appropriate level of care for an elderly person?
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that is, I think it's really, I can say this without any hesitation in my voice whatsoever. Healthcare costs are only going to go up. I could not predict the stock market, but
That's true.
healthcare costs, I can promise you, they are not going to go down. The cost of care is doing nothing but going up. What I see now, that some of this is right, some of this is going to be geographical, because there are certain parts of the country, certain areas that are maybe have a little more money. I'll call it, the San Diegos, the Californias of the world, maybe some of Florida. Geographical areas will tend to have a little more money. The Oregon coast is not one of those affluent places, that I serve.
Right.
We see probably, I'm going to say 25% of the aging population on the Oregon coast. Now, this is as a whole. I'm not narrowing this down to necessarily one city, but
Right.
but maybe 25% really have the financial resources, or it might even be a little less, but have the financial resources at least for a while to pay for their own care. And maybe that's in the term of, investments. Maybe that's in real estate. Maybe that's in large pensions, just bank accounts, or even long-term care insurance. I actually, at the time of this recording, I have a couple families that I'm working with right now that have long-term care insurance policies. And as I mentioned a moment ago, those things are getting ridiculously expensive to be able to afford. But still, nonetheless, so the majority, well, let's call it 75, let's call it 80%, are reliant on some other financial vehicle to provide their care. I would tell you most of the time, at least in my area, that's in the form of some kind of Medicaid, right? State assistance. Every once in a while, we do have a family, a daughter, a son, that they've done very well financially. They have the resources and can, for a time, they can pay for mom or dad's care, but that's not common. And so, no, there's a lot of, not only are families not planning, there's not that thought of, okay, what happens if I don't have the resources, financial resources? How are we going to pay for mom and dad's care? And so oftentimes we fall on that safety net of Medicaid. So
Yeah. And Medicaid is about to go through some things, in the coming years. So, brace for impact, people. So let's talk about long-term care, managed long-term care. I had the blessing to have experienced that industry and to understand how, the Center for Medicaid, Medicare Services works. And the policy is always changing. Every 2 hours we have a new policy, a new regulation, a new, what to approve, what not to approve, what to deny, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about managed long-term care, because a lot of people do not know that this exist. They don't know how to go about, exploring their options for it. And they don't even know that it can be a benefit based on a person's income and also age and ability, right? So based on your knowledge of, say, managed long-term care, what would you educate the people listening on what that is?
Yeah, and are you specifically referring to the process of how to get that started, or how to get the Medicaid process started? Is that what you're referring to?
What it is in general, and how to kind of get your, educate yourself on whether it's a benefit that applies to, say, a parent, or even for yourself, to save your children the headache of having to scramble in case of the big event.
Yeah, I think there's some steps that families can certainly take that won't put 100% of the burden on your kids, right? And I go back to what I said just a few minutes ago. We often tend to think that, well, yeah, one day we need to do that.
We have time.
We have time. That's exactly right. We have time. I'm going to ask the people listening to this, I'm going to ask you to suspend that thought process. And instead, I'm going to ask you to say, this is the time.
This is it.
Right now. This is the time. We've put it off, whether it's been a year or 10 years, we've put it off now. Now we need to put a plan into place. You have to have that mindset, or it's been my experience that families won't take this serious. They will just kind of haphazard take the steps to do it. My suggestion, a few things are this, is I think families need to get, first off, they need to get very real about where are mom and dad at right now in their health-wise. Mm-hmm. Let's not paint the rosy picture with the blue sky and the green grass. Where are they at right now? Based on the last few years, and if their health is failing, if their body is starting to fail, do we have 6 months? Do we have a year? Do we have 2 years before we might need help? I think we need to address that first. Okay. Not asking you to make projections. I'm asking you to be real. Okay. That's the first step. The second step is there a power of attorney in place? Okay. Is there a power of attorney? Now, I can't speak for all 50 states because there certainly don't know the rules. But here in the state of Oregon, the way that our organization conducts business is that if we have a married couple, if one of them, if their health fails, the other one automatically is not necessarily the power of attorney, but they have the legal authority to make decisions. Now, I don't know if that's true in all of the other states.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But I think most states have that rule as well.
Yeah. My suggestion is this, is you perhaps look at one of the adult children who's most active in your life. And it doesn't have to be a child. Maybe it's a brother. Maybe it's a sister. It's a sibling, right? Somebody who you feel like you can trust, that has moderately to good health. Somebody needs to be a power of attorney for you in the event something goes sideways. Somebody needs to be a power of attorney for you. I would say medically, health, and financial, at least. Mm-hmm. You need to look at putting that in place. Now, in the state of Oregon, oftentimes people think that, well, I have to get an attorney to do that, and that's going to cost, $300, $200, $400. No, you don't. Not in the state of Oregon. You do not need an attorney. You need a notary. Mm-hmm. You need an approved notary, but you can have that done for probably less than $100. You can get someone to have a power of attorney. And that doesn't mean you're giving up your rights. Please understand. You're not giving up your rights, but you need to have a power of attorney, someone that can help you, guide you, make decisions on your behalf. I think those are the
And you can write out your terms too. It doesn't have to be generic, right?
right.
So that you're on the same page as the person you're appointing. Both of you should agree on the terms, because basically when the notary comes, it's kind of like, okay, you do agree, you did sign this, okay, sign it in front of me, and I'm witnessing it. It's not giving up. It's on your terms. So whatever you want this person to do at what point in your life, then this person steps in the event that you're unable to make a decision. So it doesn't have to be a generic umbrella, terms.
Right.
You can determine what goes on that document.
A will is a
Yes.
good thing. An advance directive, a POLST, POLST, and I forget what that acronym stands for.
Physician order for life-sustaining treatment.
Yes. Important to know, and again, I think you can download a POLST for free off the internet, can't you?
You can, but it has to be a doctor's order. So what a POLST practically is you can download it and use it as a guide. However, it still involves having a conversation with your provider, your primary care, or the specialist that you see often. So with geriatric population, sometimes the cardiologist is the primary care doctor, right?
Right.
In the term of memory care, the neurologist could actually be the person who sees the vision the most, right? Before it gets to a place where somebody's incapacitated to make decision, a pulse can be established where this person is like, hey, if I stop eating, let me go in peace, or, do everything to sustain me by, slapping in a feeding tube, right? Or if I stop breathing for whatever reason, just let me go, or put me on a ventilator with, a trick in place. So it is very important. So you state what you are willing to have done to your body in a space that you're not able to make those decisions, right? So that is exactly what a pulse is. Put that in place, talk to your doctor, make sure that this meets your requirement, because there's, talking about family conflict, children, grandchildren, brothers, sisters, this is a real conflict that happens. It's like, okay, dad has stopped eating, we're suggesting to put in a feeding. He would never want that. No, he would. He would not. He loves his grand. He wants to live and see his grand. I mean, this person is in a vegetative state, right?
Yeah.
Talking about quality of life, right? It's often a real argument. It happens more often than I care to admit to.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yes, it does.
These are things to discuss with your children while you're still able to make decisions on your own. Do you want to sustain me? Yes or no? Okay, I want to be sustained so I can, whether I'm in a hospital bed, in a wheelchair, I can stay here longer. Do I want a colostomy if something is going on? Yes or no, maybe. All of these things are important, right? This is my decision. This is what I want, including CPR. CPR and a DNR order, right? It's part of that process too. A DNR is do not resuscitate, right? If my heart stops, do everything you can to bring me back. Break every single rib in my rib cage to bring me back, to restart that heart. Or just leave me alone.
Yeah.
If my heart stops, let it stop in peace. Let me just go towards the light, right? Whatever that decision is, you've got to put it down to avoid the infighting, the argument of what you would have wanted or what you would not have wanted, or if this was forced on you or not forced on you, right? Because it becomes a real thing. It divides families, So it is very important to start now, plan now. Just like Scott said, the time is today.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to say right now, rewind this 2 minutes and listen to what she just said. I'm not joking. That if parents do not take the initiative to help their kids, adult children, to understand what their wishes are, it will be left up to, I hate to say it, but mostly emotions. Well, I feel this. I feel that way. I feel this. Well, wait a minute. Hold on. What did dad want? This isn't about you. What did dad want? Gosh, I'm serious. Best part of the show so far, right there. What you just said. That is so darned important. Yep.
Thank you, Scott. It happens. Yeah. And, you just never know. You just never know. And also look into benefits, because there's certain benefits that require a certain level of income. There's a spend down thing that, it's done through Medicare. You just have to have a certain amount of money in your account to be eligible for the services. Please make sure you do your best to understand that. The other part of this is wherever you may be located in the country, right?
Yeah.
Your state should have a dedicated tab on the website about managed long-term care or managed care, right? And there are usually insurance companies that offer it. And if your insurance is part of that, look at the Alexas. The Alexas are home care companies or memory care companies that are in network. You can compare and see what fits you, what doesn't fit your need. And also, it is important. And I'll ask you this question before I give my 2 cents. In your experience, how important is it to have a point of contact?
Oh, goodness. I think that is probably one of the critical pieces because, well, let me back up and say it this way. I think in my space, in my industry, the point of contact is, and there may be 5, 6, 7 different family members.
Right.
You have to have a person, not 3 or 4. You have to have a person that is the primary, that is the primary contact to communicate with.
Right.
Every once in a while, a family will show up in our organization trying to find, care for mom or dad. And there's like a brother and a sister, or there's 2 sisters. The difficult thing becomes is that what one hears, the other one doesn't hear. Or what one says, well, I think we should do this. And then the other sister says, well, but wait a minute. Remember, Dad said we talked about this. And now all of a sudden, as the healthcare representative, you find yourself in the middle of this.
Right.
And so it's best to have a single point of contact. Maybe that's the spouse. Maybe that's the oldest son or the oldest daughter, whatever it is. Establish that. I think that's key along the way.
Right. It cuts down on a lot of miscommunication.
Oh, yeah.
And it also encourages them to talk to each other, right? So before you call me, make sure you are in agreement. Both of you, 3 of you, 4, 5, 10 of you are in agreement before the primary person contacts me. And also in a case, be careful with emails, because with emails, we have to be mindful of HIPAA regulations and compliant. So in communicating, even it's possible for everybody to be on the same email thread. So if something was said out of sort, by the primary person, somebody can come in and correct, because you don't want to be the bad guy. And often the providers, the healthcare providers or the facilitators, do get that tag from communication that wasn't theirs to begin with. What is the hardest thing that you see that family have to grapple with, especially with memory diagnosis?
Oh, my goodness. Yes. And I just experienced this firsthand just yesterday. And I've experienced it many, many times. I think the hardest piece that I see is you have a married couple, and they've been married, whether that's 40, 50, or even 60 years.
Yeah.
And this couple, they have lived a life that is just amazing. They've traveled the world. Maybe they had a business. They donated their time to causes. They really lived life. And now their partner, their spouse, can't even make it to the bathroom on time. Can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. And they're moving, or have moved, from not only are they their spouse, which they were their spouse, they were their partner 100%.
Right.
Now they're like 20% spouse and 80% caregiver. And now they're being forced. And as that ratio continues to even tilt more, now they're being forced with, I can't do this anymore. I'm not sleeping at night. He's going in the kitchen and pulling all the pots and pans out of the cupboards, out of the drawers, and putting them all over the counter.
Right.
He's taking all of the clothes out of the dresser and laying them in the bathtub. they can't be left alone. And so we have this spouse that is no longer a spouse. They're a caregiver, and they've lost that person they love. And then what happens is they look at a building, they look at a memory care building, right? They're looking at a memory care building, and the amount of guilt that they feel is just overwhelming. I almost get emotional thinking about it, because they're stuck. This is the person they chose to spend their entire shared life with, their most intimate moments, their most epic adventures, holding their grandkids, great grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're looking at putting their loved one in a memory care, simply because, not that they want to, they just can't do it on themselves or by themselves. And the guilt it's the weight of an elephant, that is probably the single hardest piece that I see. The children, yes, they're burdened. They have a sadness too, but it's not their spouse.
It's not the same.
It's a different relationship. It's a different dynamic, especially when you have a situation where maybe you have the adult child that it's their stepfather, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the father the stepfather that came into their life later, so not a biological father. They look at their mom and they say, "Mom, I see you just deteriorating. I see you not sleeping. You're going to hurt yourself if you continue to try and pick him up off the floor. Mom, you have to do the right thing for yourself. You've got to find something else. You can't do it all on your own." And the guilt that comes with that. The last piece that I'll say to that, because I've heard this so many times, right? We have mom, let's say mom's 90 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and her daughter or daughters, and 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the daughter made the promise to mom, "Mom, I will never put you in one of those places. Don't you worry, Mom. Mom, you can come live with me. I will take care of you. I will never put you in one of those ugly, nasty, dirty, smelly, stinky places," right? We've heard that.
Yeah.
And then guess what? 20, 30, 40 years later, they didn't fully realize the promise that they were making, because they can't do it. They did it for a while, and that's honorable, right? That's very, very honorable. They did it for a while, but mom's care reached a level they just can't do it anymore. So guess what happens? Guilt. I promised, even though mom is not in her right mind, her cognition is gone, her memory's gone, they look at me in tears and they say, they say, "I promised my mom I would never put her in a place like this." And now they are wrestling with that guilt and that promise that they made all those years ago, right? Mm-hmm. These are the things that I see constantly. And the struggle's real. It's extremely real. The burden is extremely heavy.
It is.
Yeah.
So, Scott, these are real things. These are real people. These are real events. That is why it is important to have this conversation earlier than later. Love is love, family is family. Promises are promises, especially promises that are vow related. However, reality is very real. So it is important to understand that it's not an abandonment, is a level of care that is required.
Yeah.
Because the flip side of that is your loved ones hurting themselves very badly. Very, very badly. That's the flip side of that. You have to think about that. You're trying, you're doing your best. What if you were so exhausted the past 3 days that when you went down, you slept heavy and you woke up to the front door wide open and dad or mom are gone? Then what? Where do you start? And we're heavy in the winter months, right? Hypothermia sets in very quickly, no?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't know how far, what danger they encountered, and then what? What happens? Would you rather pick them up in pieces or have a place where you can go visit and stay as long as you want. Memory care is not easy. It is not easy. It's very heavy. And even when we go the route of getting home care services for the families that can afford to pay for that privately, right? It is a heavy financial requirement, right? And even with that, even if you get a caregiver during the daytime, you also have to have a caregiver at night, right? Even if you have a live-in caregiver, your live-in caregiver is entitled to about 8 hours of sleep a night, uninterrupted, right? And with memory, we know that there's a phenomenon called sundowning, right?
Oh
When the
yeah.
sun goes down, the activities go up, right?
Oh my goodness. That's a whole
Right.
that's a whole other podcast in
It
itself, isn't
is.
it? Oh
It
my
is.
gosh.
Right. So this is
Yeah.
the surface stuff that we're kind of, you know, broaching so that we can have this serious conversation, especially around this holiday time where we will be around family, right?
Mm.
Observe your family members, talk to each other, have this conversation. We as humans, we're so great with the beginning of life. Oh my goodness, a baby. Yes. Oh my God, she's so pretty. He's so handsome. We are not good with talking about the reality of end of life.
Gosh, that is so
Right? We're
true.
all moving that direction anyway, right? Denying it is
Yeah.
not going to stop it. It's just going to catch you unawares,
Yeah.
right? In a
Yep.
situation that you don't want to get caught in, right? Have those conversations openly, right? Have
Yep.
those conversations about care, about, okay, what should we put in place? What would you prefer if this happens? What would you like us to do? Who do you want to be your primary decision maker? And take your emotions out of it. Just
Yeah.
because you feel you're closer to mom and dad does not mean that they want you to be the primary decision maker. Maybe
Yeah.
you're not that responsible with money.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That is so true. That is so true. Oh my gosh.
Yes, maybe you're not. Or
Yeah.
you're not organized,
Yeah.
You may miss the important appointment because, you forgot to put it on the calendar,
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay. Just take your emotions out of it. If you're the organizer, be the organizer. If you're the financial person, you handle that. If you're the chauffeur, you love to drive, you will be there to take dad and mom everywhere. Be
Yeah.
that person. If you're the homebody that loves domestic stuff, play that role and play it well. We all have a role to play, right?
Amen. Amen.
Nobody is a preferred person. And parents, while you're still alive and very well able to make a decision, I think it is very important to put these things in place and have these conversations to eliminate the strife and discord that happens afterwards, right? It's not like you're the favorite, even if they are. It's just that, your brother is a little bit better with this. Your sister has a little more experience when it comes to this. My granddaughter is, great with, finding resources. Let's have this conversation because it's very, very important. And if you are somebody who has a loved one that is declining and has a memory diagnosis, Alzheimer's, dementia, it's okay to accept help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Families, especially spouses, they tend to want to carry the burden themselves and not ask for help. And I would just tell you, while that's to some degree that's noble and that's honorable, it's not realistic. It's not realistic. You may be able to do that in the start of their decline. You will not be able to do it long term. You just won't. I heard something just yesterday, and I wanted to share this. And of all of the families I've worked with, this was the first time I'd ever heard this. So this is why I want to share it with the families. A wife and a daughter I was sitting in front of talking to, and they're looking at memory care for her husband, married 59 years. And I'm getting to know them, and we're talking about their situation, talking about his level of care. And halfway through our discovery meeting that we're having, she said something that I thought was extremely critical. She said, after he was diagnosed, we were having a heartfelt discussion. And he told me this. if I ever get to the place where I can't even take care of myself or remember who my family is, you have my permission to put me in a home. Wow.
What a relief.
Yes, that is a gift. That is a gift. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily make the heart easier, but this person's request was to say, don't carry that burden all on your shoulders. It's okay if I go into a home. What? Oh my gosh. I hope families can take something away from this, that they understand that pieces like that are a huge blessing. I know we don't want to talk about it. I know it's not enjoyable,
Mhm.
but when the time comes and you can look at that piece and go, he said, don't expect me to carry this burden by myself. Put me in a memory care home.
Yeah,
Families, that is huge.
it is.
That is huge. Now that comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, communication.
Communicate.
You,
Absolutely.
you, you have to communicate that. You need, in fact, I would even say have it written down, maybe, whether that's an
Yes.
advanced director. I
That's,
mean,
yeah,
whatever
that's
it
a
is.
living will,
Yeah.
right? Living will.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
living. Put it down, right?
Yes.
In like, this is it.
Yeah.
If ever I get to this point, this is a decision, and this is my decision. This is my will, right? Who is going to execute this? This is this person, and my daughter, my granddaughter, my son, my son-in-law, whoever, right? It is not easy to have that conversation. And when it comes to activities, you mentioned this gentleman said, if I ever come to a place where I don't recognize my family, or I
Yeah.
can't even do, certain things. And this is where families sometimes get, confused on what is going to tip me off, right?
Mhm.
So in home care, okay, we have ADLs, which are activities of daily living. Then we have IADLs, which is instrumental activities of daily living. When a nurse comes out to do an assessment, okay, or even assessment is done to see if a person fits into a particular level of care, whether it's memory care or home care. When the assessment is done, these are areas that are being assessed, okay? These are areas that are being looked at. Okay, for ADLs, those are things that you do on your body, right? The things that we do mindlessly every day.
Yeah.
You get up, you brush your teeth, you take a shower or change your clothes,
Yep.
right? You brush your hair,
Yep.
right? You put on your shoes, you wear weather appropriate clothes, right?
Yeah.
So that's all ADL stuff. Can I do stuff on my body by myself, right? IADLs, shopping. Can I go to the supermarket and pick out the right foods, right? Can I come back into my home and prepare that food, knowing when to turn off the stove, when to turn it down, right? To make sure the gas is not leaking, what pans to use, putting things back, doing my dishes, scrubbing or washing my floors or mopping my floors.
Yeah.
Those are IADLs, right?
Yeah.
Anything that is around me, can I take care of that, right? Or doing my laundry even. Right. So, in keeping this in mind, if you observe that a mom declining in any of these areas, is a good time to start the conversation.
100%.
If mom is dizzy when she stands up, that's a fall waiting to happen. Right. So most decline and fatal decline often starts with a fall.
Yes.
Yes.
Goodness.
Let's start with that. Often starts with an innocent or fall. Right. And it just is downhill from there. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Make sure if mom is not seeing properly or dad is not seeing properly, have night lights. Right. Those little baby gates? Put those baby gates in doorways that lead down a set of stairs. Right. Because a tumble is fatal.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So start paying attention to these things. Can dad brush his hair? Is he tremoring? Is he forgetting? Look at the pill box. If they have a pill box, look at the pill box to see if they're taking their pills, that are arranged by dates, time, or whatever. Or look at the prescription bottle, right? How old is that bottle? And is it still full?
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Pay attention. Is dad changing? Is mom changing? right? So these are things that, when you're around your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunties, you pay attention. Yes, there's some decline that is expected with age. However, there's some decline that are just alarming,
Very
right?
much. Yeah.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
When one of those red flags pop up, please don't push it back down. Pay attention to
Oh my gosh, I'm going to steal that from you. I am so going to steal that from you, and
Steal
I'm
it
going to
away,
bring it.
Scott.
I'm bringing it to Oregon, and I'm going to use that. Red flag pops up. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Oh my gosh, girl, that was brilliant.
Thank you.
That
Now
that was
just steal it
brilliant.
away.
Let
You
me let
use it.
me let me piggyback on something real
Sure.
quick here.
Sure.
We talking about falls. I was in a home with a family recently, and she's a mom. Mom is 90 years old. Mom had a hip replacement not that long ago. Now the body doesn't heal itself with a hip replacement I think she was 89 when she had the hip replacement, but the body just doesn't heal. So she's using a walker. She's ambulating, she's walking, but it's slow,
Right.
and it's steady. And she had some falls even after the hip replacement. And she had a wheelchair, but the family was like, well, if we put mom in the wheelchair, we're afraid she'll never get up again.
Right.
And we want her to keep moving. And this might be controversial for some people, but I want you to hear my heart behind this. Mom is 90. 90. She's not 50.
Let her sit.
She
Let her sit.
she's
Let
not
her sit.
she's 90. Do you want her to be around another 3-4 years, or do you want to take the chance, because now you're going to have her walking, that she may fall and she may only be with you another 6 or 9 months, because falls, as you said it, falls lead to game over.
That's it.
At that age, they just do. They just do. The body won't heal like it did when we were in our
the
younger
body's the body she had from day one. That
Yes.
body's 90 years old.
Yes.
Right? Be considerate. The thing with family is I get it, but on the other side of things, experience has actually helped me to come to reality, right? It doesn't matter how much you want to hang on to your parents. Let it be here. Hang on to them here, right?
Yeah.
It is not okay to prolong somebody who's actively suffering. She's walked for 90, maybe 89 years. Okay, she's 90. She's walked for 89 years of her life. We are not signing her up for any half marathon, for whatever it is. She's not going to run a race. Let her sit. Let her heal. If she wants to walk, encourage her to.
Yeah. Amen.
We're here to support. Family,
Yep.
we're here to support.
Yep.
We're here to do the best that our loved ones can do. I'm not saying stand back and let your loved one just, disintegrate into nothing, right? When you can kind of like encourage them to be ambulatory and, everything to help them. However, if they cannot, they cannot. Okay? If she needs a wheelchair when she goes outside, when you're ambulating outside, let her do that, right? If it's within the house, just make sure there are no trip hazards, wires across the floor, dog-eared, rugs or scattered rugs in the house. Make sure those, precautions, safety in the home, so she doesn't trip and have another fall, right? And, if she can tolerate short distances, let her tolerate short distances. And she'll just increase her endurance with time, right? She's 90. She's not running a marathon.
Yeah.
It's okay for her to sit in a wheelchair, right?
Yep.
Get what quality over quantity, because we always want to go for the quantity and we forget that the quality is being compromised, right? So quality of life, quality with you, quality with making memories, that is more important than trying to have her live on to 110.
Yeah, 100%. Great reminder. Somewhere in there, well, you said it. I'm just going to a little different variation.
Right.
Our human nature, we often, it's too easy to get focused on what we want and not what our aging loved one wants.
Absolutely.
We think, well, yeah, but they need to be walking. They and it's like, hold on a second. What do they want? Don't they have some kind of a say in this? You know, I don't want to. I really don't want to open this box, but I want to use this as an example.
Open it, Scott.
No, I don't want to open it, but I'm going to use this as it's just an example, and I don't want to talk about the COVID thing, but here's my example.
That box. Okay, keep
Oh
it
my
close.
gosh. Yeah. So in the aging population, I'm not talking about the general population. I'm talking about older folks that were in assisted living and memory care homes.
Right.
We had one lady, 96.
Mm.
96. And all the states did some variation of different things. And I'm not here to say whether that was right or wrong. That's not my point. Her brand new great granddaughter holding her outside her bedroom window, can't open the window, got to talk through this glass. And she was in tears. She says, I just want to hold her. I just want to hold her. I'm not here to say whether what we did in our policies were right or wrong. I'm here to say that sometimes quality, as you said just a minute ago, quality of life trumps quantity of life, right? And we have to sometimes stop thinking what we want emotionally and think about what does that person who's at the very end of their life want?
Yeah.
Right? How do we honor them? Now, we have to make good choices. We have to make sure they stay healthy and those sort of things. But it's too easy to forget, like, well, they're 96. I have to make all the choices. Well, hold on a minute. If their cognition is such, if their memory is okay, it's just their body that's failing. I think one thing to honor them is to listen to them and hear them and hear what their needs are too. And as we talk about healthcare in the older adult space, this is not about doing everything for them, but this is also about honoring them and letting them have their dignity, right? I think there's an element of that we can't forget.
We shouldn't.
We need to remember that.
Yeah. And, a little bit on our first call when you and I spoke initially, and this is why I told you it was a culture shock for me that in the Western world, we have, a separate establishment for older folks. It's kind of like, okay, you go there kind of a thing. And it's not like integrated as a community aspect of care and all of that stuff. And this kind of like hints at that a little bit. I think culturally, we are used to or we are accustomed to making decisions for older adults. So what you said, it's that there's that clash there, right? We're talking about memory care where families have tried and, it is being determined that a different level of care is required for this family member because, of safety, because of longevity, and because of just sheer burnout from the family members who have now become caregivers. And then on the flip side of that is the people who work hard all their lives but do not have the children around them and they can't care for themselves anymore. Although memory is intact, it's just that the human body ages and is frail, right? And they have to go into a home, right? At that point, everything is done for them. Everything is determined for them. When to shower, when to take their meds, when to go to the rec, when to eat, and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of that. So if we have a timetable for you for your day, and we have a policy for the facility, then we're not breaking it just because you want to hold your great grandchild. Do you see that? So it's almost uniformed. We have ingrained this into that system of care that there's no flexibility, right?
Right.
So we're very black and white. So in order for us to value that level of quality of life as healthcare decision makers, whoever's listening to this call, what would you have done if you were in a situation, if you were that 96, 98, 100-year-old, 90-year-old grandfather or grandmother on the other side of that window, seeing this brand new life that has come into your family and wanting to hold them, what would you have done? Would that be a desire for you? And can we be flexible in a sense where everybody can still be safe, take on all the precautions you want to take,
Yeah.
hazmat suit, whatever it is, just for this person to be able to have that quality, right? We have a lot of work to do in healthcare and we can do it, right? It's just a matter of listening to these real life stories and putting ourselves there, right? It's like that golden rule thing. Do unto others as you wish to be done by. However, the flip side of that rule is do unto others as they wish to be done by.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness.
I don't know if you're negative self-talk, so I don't want to deal with your rubbish, right? I don't negative self-talk, so treat me well. You understand?
Yes, right.
Treat others as they like to be treated.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
So, there's a lot. There's a lot we can talk about, Scott. And
Right.
I think we covered a lot of things on the surface, right? And please, whoever is listening to us, my goal is that somebody walks away from this conversation with something, right? So please engage. Let us know what you think about this conversation. Let us know if this was useful. Let us know if you would like to have more of this conversation so we can bring Scott back on and talk about specific topics, because there are a lot of things that we can actually discuss that we have experience with, right?
Yeah.
And we just want everybody to be informed. Don't wait until the last minute, please.
Oh,
and Scott,
please
is there
don't.
anything you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'm gonna re-say what you just said. Please don't wait till the last minute.
I love
Please,
it.
please don't. It's okay to talk about end of life. America has a little bit of a taboo. Not all of us, but it has a taboo about talking about end of life. It doesn't feel comfortable,
Yeah.
and I get that. But being an adult also comes with a responsibility.
Absolutely.
And have that discussion with your parents. And if you're an older adult listening to this, I hope we've kind of jogged something for you to understand the importance to make your wishes known with the people you love. Don't leave it up to assumption, because if you do, when an event happens, the people you love, your kids, your spouse, they're going to be left to make all of these hard decisions with emotions just running. And that's not the right way to make decisions.
No.
It's just not. We humans do not make good decisions when we're just emotionally charged.
Absolutely.
So have that conversation. Don't wait. Don't tell me, well, that's one day. No, that one day is now.
Yeah.
The one day is now.
Right
It's
now.
okay. Take the first step and communicate with the people you love. That's all I got.
Absolutely. I love it, Scott. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
So
you.
it was great having you. So for everybody listening, we are going to include everything, Scott, in the show notes, because we want you to be able to reach out to learn from him. And if you're in the Oregon area, you can reach out and talk about your needs, right? Let's really build ourselves in a community and awareness. If there's anybody that you know that could benefit from this conversation, please do share this conversation with them. And if you like this level of conversation to continue, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to share our experiences, our expertise, and have a conversation that actually do matter. Because you know what? The aging population needs us. There's more and more of us, because we're all getting there. There's more of us, and we've got to take care of each other. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care of yourselves and be a good human. Try it. All right? All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg Vex Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.